conversation. You know, when we was down at Tucker's Grove, and we was filming the Tucker's Grove and the campground stuff, somebody came in there and stole that lumber that was piled up, you know, where the tent fell.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody actually came back down there and tore it up. The guy who tore it down, he was in the process of building it back.
Right.
And he went back the day to get, he left some 4x4s and stuff like that down there. And somebody came into the campground and stole the lumber and all that, you know.
And somebody knew it was there.
Yeah, somebody knew it was there. And that was Blanche, you know, Blanche Petty. Not Blanche Petty, Thomason, Pete's mother-in-law. That tent, she had her tent towed down, and it's going to build it back. And that's what happened.
She didn't have hers open this year?
Oh yeah, well, I went down there to eat the fish. You know, she served fish every year. You know, I went down there to the fish and everything, and I talked to her. And then we went down there the next day, you know, with Loretta. My name is Rudolph Young. I am the historian and genealogist for Lincoln County, and we are here at the what you call it? You call it a what?
This is the Rosenwald.
No, I mean, what do you use it for? With the church, I mean.
This is our fellowship.
Oh yeah, we're at the fellowship hall for Mount Vernon Baptist Church. That's located on Mount Vernon Church Road in Iron Station, North Carolina. And well, I am. Let me tell you who I am now. Like I said, I'm Rudolph Young. I'm owner of the Nicer Place bookstore, and our website is nicerwyoung.org, and the store is housed in the Oaklawn Center in Lincolnton. It's 501 Linden Street in Lincolnton, North Carolina. 14? Thanks for getting me straight. 28092. And the telephone number is 980-284-1442. And the website is oaklancenter.org. And our parent company is the Coalition of Black Churches of Lincoln County, and the Community in Schools and the Head Start program is housed in that same building.
No, on the same campus.
So, will you please? Now, we happen to have Ms. Ola Mae Foster, a past president of the Coalition of Churches, and she is going to talk about the Rosenwald School project here, because this is a former Rosenwald school. It's called Mount Vernon Rosenwald School, and she's going to talk about the project we got for the center, for the Oaklawn Center. And the Oaklawn Center happened to be also a Rosenwald school. Ms. Foster.
Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington worked together as a team in going through the South. Well, let's start with the state of Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and traveling throughout the South. With this effort, there were more than 5,000 schools built. The reason for building the schools was to ensure that minority, black, colored students were educated. These two guys teamed up together, went into the communities and the states, and formed different coalitions. Some were with the members of the community. Others, they solicited people to come in and join their effort. They saw this effort so important until they placed many hours and days and times in getting this effort going. The two buildings that I am going to more or less talk about that I have some history on, the one at Mount Vernon, because I came here, moved here in this community, and at the time it was being operated as a school. I never attended this school, never attended a school in Lincoln County. However, my church became owners of the building, gained ownership of the building, and it's used now, and we'll come back to this as our fellowship hall for the Mount Vernon Baptist Church. I understand from history and research that this building was built in 1926 and operated until the 1960s. I'm not sure right now, I'm not looking at my research papers and so forth, and just speaking from the top of my head, more or less. At that time, when the school closed, it was a 2-room school with closets, not bathrooms, and a kitchen. And it had various teachers come in and supervision and so forth. But this building came about with part of the coalition that had been established between Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington. There were members of this community, and I won't try to name all because I will probably leave someone out, and I think that would be an injustice to those persons that worked so hard for this. But they cooperated with a sawmill here, and I think the sawmill was owned by the Links. And they received materials and so forth, and they had to put in a certain amount of money also to start the erection of the building. If I'm correct in saying that Rosenwald put in, it was either $500 or $1,500 for the building. And the total cost was not more than, I think, $2,000 some dollars. And the school building was built. But in 1966, I believe it was, when Lincoln County Schools closed the school, the students were transferred to other schools in Lincoln County, and it was put up for sale, for auction, for sale. And there were some individuals that wanted the building, one by the name of, I am told, Aaron Moore. But since the church was here on this acreage, very close and adjacent to the school, the Board of Education, in which we're so grateful for, sold the building to Mount Vernon Baptist Church. And we've been in this building as a fellowship hall since then. But the building now is in deterioration, and we have a project going, which we started about 3 years ago. And I am Ola Mae Foster. I'm project director for this building. And I'm trying, I have so many efforts going to try and help to renovate the building. We have started certain projects, and we're soliciting, and hopefully we're going to be able to renovate this building to look as it did. In other words, we have siding on this building now. The siding will be removed, and the original wood will be on the outside. The ceilings have been lowered, and that this will all come down for the ceilings, and we will have the original structure, and which will be beautiful, I'm sure. The walls, we have paneling, but the paneling, the original boards remain behind this paneling, and it too will be removed. I've had an architect come from Harris Architects and do an assessment of the building, which costs $6,000 to get done. That's just looking at it and talking about what possibilities that lies ahead. I wrote a grant and received monies to help with this from the Covington Foundation. And I continue to network and try to find resources for the building. It was an estimate of $300,000 to get it done. However, I believe that we can get it done for less than that. But that remains to be seen. So my goal is to raise whatever amount it takes to renovate the building. I've spent many hours in desperation personally trying to get people on board for this project, and mostly within this community and the church. But I have faith, and I believe, and I know that it's going to happen. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Oaklawn building in Lincolnton, the Oaklawn Center. It too was a Rosenwald building. And in 1990, the Coalition of Churches went before the Lincoln County Commissioners because they still owned the building. And we asked them to let the coalition buy the building. That was not negotiable. That didn't go very far. However, we're very grateful that they decided to let the coalition have the lease. And we leased that building from the county until George Woods came here as county manager. And he did not want to renew the lease to the coalition for unknown reasons. However, the coalition kept on working there and doing and, so forth, and the coalition even hired someone to come in and do the windows at Oaklawn, and which was Gary Lowen from Lincoln Paint and Glass. And I must pause to say, he was God sent, because he did this. He allowed us to pay him as we could, and like that. And when we saw that, well, pause a little bit, the windows that he placed in the building were broken out through the community. He came back. The windows were replaced over there twice, and those are the windows that remain in the building today. We had, some vandalism and things like that happen over there, but still, we kept on working there and had security placed in the building, and we just really didn't give up. And I was at the time employed by the Lincoln County Schools, and some of my co-workers and some of the volunteers decided to bring some of the students to help do projects over there, cleanups and so forth. Churches joined in and helped do this. Eric Rio, he was at Freedom Church, and just others came in and helped us so much over there. We had certain cleanup days that we did over there. And then we decided just to keeping on with it, because we knew that the heart was there for Oaklawn. Oaklawn was an all-black school. All of these Rosenwald schools were all-black schools. And the people had moved away, and they didn't have very many students, that remained in the community that could tell the story of Oaklawn and how things, were and how, they went on. So we formed like a May Day program, just different activities, as I said, and kept going, you know, like that. However, the building adjacent to Rosenwald, which is not documented as a Rosenwald building, because it was built separate, the park was built separate and apart from the Rosenwald building, housed a Head Start program. Executive director was John Dixon, and Carol Kilgo was the director of the site. And they worked so well with the Coalition of Churches and allowed us to have space in the Head Start building, and which had heat, air, and everything that we needed. And we were able to stay there and work all through the years. I'm talking about from the 90s now on up to presently. At that time, we saw that Mr. Woods was not going to budge to work with us. He went out and solicited, and I say this with proof of what happened. He went out and solicited others, and we had an assistant manager that came in, Martha Lytle. She joined him, and I was told by the present occupants, the least occupants of the Oaklawn School, that she went out and asked for people to come and work over us, the Coalition of Churches, to get the building and how they would allow them to have the building. One was Boys and Girls Club. The other was, and I'm not sure that she had as much involvement with the Boys and Girls Club as she did the current people, least people, which are the Communities and Schools program that I had worked with when I was employed with the Lincoln County Schools, in helping to get students placed in the program. Yet it seemed to be that they did not want to see the coalition occupy space in the building. However, God willed it to happen, and we once again appeared before the Lincoln County Commissioners. And the commissioners were gracious at this time. When we started out, we had some wonderful commissioners, and now with the new management and everything, we have some wonderful people on board. And the statement, and I quote partly, was that the Coalition of Churches will always be around, but the other occupants may not be. Not calling by name. So that night, the Lincoln County Commissioners said they took a vote, and Commissioner Cecilia Martin stated and asked, she said, "Ola Mae, what do you want in that building?" And I sort of said, we only need one room. We don't want the whole building. We don't have to have the whole building. And we will share with anyone that's there. We will do that. Then the county commissioners took their vote. There was only one dissenting vote that we not occupy the building. But let me go back a little bit and say this. Lincoln County owns the building, but to get the building renovated came from a CATFIS grant from the governor of North Carolina, who was Beverly Perdue. She gave the money. I saw that we got the money in Lincoln County. The money went through the county commissioners, and that renovation begun. And that's why we had the completion of the Oaklawn Rosenwald School at this time. And you'll be hearing more from us because we have a historian, Rudolph Young, who's going to be working with us to help us create a history museum there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ola Mae. And we have here today, we have Barbara Brooks Killian. And Barbara Brooks Killian is, she exemplifies community, her family exemplify community honor and responsibility. She is a native of Cherryville, North Carolina, but she have moved to Lincoln County in the past years, and her husband has died. But anyway, Barbara's family were never slaves. She is descended from Elizabeth Brooks of County Cork, Ireland, and who came to America as an indentured servant and was tricked by a false indenture contract and was enslaved in Baltimore, Maryland. And she was put in jail for bastardy, and she met a family from Cleveland County, North Carolina, the Porters, who was coming back to North Carolina. So she asked them to bring their daughter with them. She would come later on. She never did show up. However, that is not the story. The story is community, how the communities develop, how the black communities develop through honor and responsibility. When the slaves walked off the plantation, the government asked them what did they want, and they said, we want religious instruction for ourselves, and we want education for our children. And they set up the first communities, and those communities built their first churches, and the schools were usually inside the churches. And these communities didn't have any crime. The people looked out after each other. They didn't have much, but what they had, they shared with each other. Now, as far as the schools are concerned, there have been 6 Rosenwald schools in Lincoln County, and none in the West. And Cherryville is also in the West, so therefore there was no Rosenwald schools in Cherryville. Now, but the schools that were in the West were what we call exceptional schools. For instance, since there were no schools in the West, the schools were built according to they was built by the freedmen. They were built by the freedmen, and later on, there was a Quaker by the name of Annie T. Jeans who donated money so that they could hire teachers. And these schools, they became the schools that we know now. We have the Lincoln. We have West Lincoln High School in the West. Of course, the black high schools closed. And as far as when the school started out with a freedman school at Best Chapel. Best Chapel is located on Flay Road in Vale, North Carolina, which is west part of Lincoln County. And that school was the first school in Lincoln County. The Freedmen Bureau records say that the teachers there was Nathan Best and Lucy Kraft. Now, we know that that Nathan had a brother named Thomas Best, And Thomas Best came from that community and that school and came to Lincolnton, and he co-founded a church in Lincoln. It was Hinton Chapel Methodist Episcopal Church. And later on, that church moved to Car Farm Road in Lincoln, in the Poplars area, and of course, Thomas Best moved out there, and he was the father of Russell Best, and in that community, and then there was another guy named Walter Best who moved to Cherville, and he started the Rudolph Chapel Amy Zion Church in Cherville. This is where there was Barbara's church and Barbara's people and all that, and also with was it Lucy Best? Hey, what's Al Gray's mama name?
Huh?
What's Al Gray's mama name?
Barbara. What's your mama's sister's name?
Which name?
Miss Graves. What's her first name?
Jaretha?
No, your mama's the
Wait.
Edna.
Edna.
Okay, Edna Graves. Okay, Edna Graves. Edna Graves was a educator at Oaklawn School, but they lived there. But she has since died, and that's the mother of Al Graves. And Al Graves, they descended from the Browns in Caswell County, and that family started that special invented a special way to cure tobacco, and that enabled the Duke Company to become rich by selling tobacco. And but anyway, get back to the Barbara's family. Barbara told me that she's one of the blackest brooks, the blackest brooks there were, because this family is very fair. Of course, we fair because they're descended from an Irish woman, and they've never been slaves, so therefore you expect them to be fair skinned, and all of them are fair skinned. Like Reverend, I like the lawyer Olamide. What that lawyer Ramsur, what was his name?
Now Barbara know him because she calls him by his first name. Hey Barbara, Judge Ramsur, what was his first name?
James Ramsey.
Judge Ramsur, that was kin to you in Gastonia. That he was a lawyer, judge. You call him by the first name all the time. You can't remember.
Well, anyway,
There's so many.
his Judge Ramsur's wife was a Brooks, and they descended from Jerry Brooks, and Jerry Brooks was anyway, he made charcoal to burn in that furnace over there in it was called the Ormond Furnace over there in that area. But anyway, we are going to close now, and I want to thank you for coming, and I want to present this to Barbara and to Ola Mae. You can take it for her, and what it is a book. And it's the latest book, and it's off of Hannibal Smith and all this, and it's talking about the what's called. And I want you. This one is called American Patriots, Blacks in the Confederate the Confederates. I did this one when I was in Connecticut in 2006, and then I did this is called Tucker's Grove, Legacy of a Campground. And Tucker's Grove campground down there. And this one is Venture Smith, Burkhard something, I can't get them in my glasses. Venture Smith, Burkhard, Immigration Narrative on Hannah Smith, Peacemaking is a Tactic of War. Now, and I'll explain that later on in the year, but how is that relevant to this Rosenwald School and with the black communities and Mount Vernon and African communities and how black people live among us and ourselves. And what it is people have viewed us as being stereotypical, like welfare. When blacks came off the plantation and rejected material help and rejected free land. That story about you hear about the 40 acres of the mule, that never happened. And this one I have is called G.E. Massey, African American Education Legacy of 100 Years. And in this, it tells about that school that was out in the Best Chapel that was called Best Chapel School. And like I said, Nathan Best was one of the teachers there. And Nathan Best could not read and write. Then he was in that school to maintain discipline rather than teach. And Lucy Craft was the famous Lucy Craft Laney, who came up, that the AMA sent her up here from Augusta, Georgia, at Lucy. And when I was in college down at John C. Smith, I played football with a guy named Robert Wells, who was the cousin to Mary Wells. He was a graduate and attended Lucy C. Laney High School in Augusta, Georgia. And Lucy C. Laney, the real Lucy C. Laney, she started the first schools and education in Georgia, and she left Best Chapel. Remember, she was only 14 years old. She went to Best Chapel and enrolled into Atlanta University and graduated from Atlanta University. Well, you can Google her life on from Wikipedia, and I don't need to go into it. And this is G.E. Massey, who was the principal of the Oaklawn School when the Oaklawn Rosenwald School closed, and the Oaklawn Rosenwald School closed, and then it opened and Newbold opened in 1952. So Oaklawn ceased being a high school in 1952. However, it went on until what, 91 or something like that, as a city school, as a city.
No, it was never a city school. Oaklawn, Massey was on.
No. I'm talking about Oaklawn.
I'm not sure.
Miss Loretz taught there and taught white children, so I know it was a school in the, But anyway, thank you very much, and I want to thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
And
Now you gonna take all this back before I can read it? I'm gonna keep it.
no, it was given to you. It was given to you.
Okay.
For you and Barbara.
Sit on my night.